It's the SBLive Washington team at the 2021 Virtual Media Days for high school basketball in the state of Washington. Couple schools, couple districts have already begun play. A couple got some good news that the season is right around the corner. We are joined by head coach of Kelso in the GSHL, Joe Kinch. Coach, appreciate you joining. It's got to be a breath of fresh air knowing that practice in the season is here and you guys have had a chance to practice and play a little bit over the last couple of weeks. How are things going?
Things are good. Yeah, it's been, we moved unfortunately to phase 2 in Cowlitz County, which puts all of our games on the road. But, small price to pay. The kids have been eager to play, and it's been nice to have at least a little normalcy the last few weeks in terms of practice and some game prep and playing. We've already played 4 games, so hopefully we get 15 more or 11 or 12 more in.
With such a condensed season and less practices, not as many required practices for a student athlete to play in a game, how has that changed your early season coaching prep and mentality this season?
We played a lot more 5v5. We played a ton more. I don't know how good the results have been in terms of watching us play, but I think just because I thought we'd try to play our way into shape, I just think naturally we're not in very good basketball shape, but I think that's normal for what's happened. So we've spent more time just playing and trying to coach more on the fly. And, I'm fortunate I have 5 other assistant coaches at practice. So, we're trying to keep the flow of the practice going and pulling kids off to the side and coaching and doing that. Not as many breakdown drills at all. And, I think the kids probably prefer more playing than drills, but it's been good. It's been unique for sure. And, you bounce ideas off other coaches and, none of us have gone through it. And, our league was the first to kind of get out of the gates and start. So it's been interesting. And, the style of plays, I think, been pretty physical. I think the officials have let us play. And so, which I think is good, it's rough, but it's much better to be out there playing than not.
Joe, that 2018-19 season with Shaw, Riley, that was a great run in Tacoma. 2 years later, you're breaking in a lot of new faces and two new point guards. How would you characterize this particular job, this particular team right now? Is it a reshuffle? Is it a rebuild? How would you characterize?
Well, we're young. I think the valuable part of, I think we all get to a point in our careers where you kind of dread a little bit of June and the grind that is June, the 40 games and the tournaments, and kids love that. And of course we, as coaches, we like parts of it, but you always wanted more practice time. And I really see the benefits of having June now, going through what essentially is, kind of a June on steroids with more practice time. But we're just young, we have really eager kids that want to do well, that spend time in the gym and are super coachable. But, you have to go through game experience. And, like we were saying, we always play the first weekend at SPU and, you have 3 games under your belt, and you learn from games. I really believe you learn a ton from games. You learn a ton against competition and kind of adjust. And they tell me you have to internalize and figure out where you need to get better. And so we're playing June now with fewer games and more practices. So, the learning curve is still pretty steep, but we went through a couple of years, obviously, with, Shaw leading those group of, 2 really good teams. And this team, I think, saw those kids and I think that, perpetuates itself, and that's awesome. But, we have a lot of work to do to even reach where those 2 teams were.
Coach, I've asked this question to some of the other coaches we're holding these virtual media days with as well. And usually the wintertime, you're, as a basketball fan, you don't get a chance to watch NBA and college games. You're so focused on your own programs. You'll see bits and pieces here or there. But is there anything that you've tried to focus in on to learn from watching NBA or college game this year that's going to help you teach your high school level players?
Well, I think the biggest shift for me, and probably a lot of coaches, is just, all the on-ball continuity stuff and trying to grasp that, and I've been, we run a ton of flex here, and, I will argue with coaches that, our flex is more motion by the time, when teams defend it, you have to understand, concepts and where to go. And so learning the on-ball continuity stuff has been really valuable, because I think, it expands my knowledge of basketball. And I think that's really important. And it also allows, there's a lot of freedom for players there. And I think when you show them, well, here's what we're capable, or here's the idea behind it, I think it motivates them to get into the gym and work on those skills, because there's certainly some skill sets involved in being able to run on ball continuity and giving players that freedom to make those plays and decisions and then living with results.
You mentioned the on-ball continuity offense, and that's become a staple of a lot of high school.
Well, it's the modern day flex. Everybody runs it now.
I can tell in your voice that you love flex.
I do like. There's parts of it I like. There are parts of it I like. I like to use it just because it frustrates other coaches. Like, God, he's still running it, But yeah, there are parts to it I like. But I mean, this has really become, because we got to a point. Well, gosh, we defend it, virtually preparing for every team, so we may as well continue to develop it. So we ran quite a bit of it now.
It's one of those things, if you can't stop it, we might as well run the same offense.
Mm-hmm.
So you're doing a lot of the on ball screen continuity offense. Tommy Lloyd, while he was an assistant at Gonzaga for the last 20 years or so, really kind of popularized that, I think.
I do too.
For a lot of coaches.
For sure.
Now at Arizona. How excited are you for Tommy, seeing that he is a Kelso alum and he's now a head coach at one of the biggest programs in the country? Do you use that as motivation for your current players to use him as an example?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Tommy's always stayed true to his roots. I think that's one thing with Tommy, that, he's always been proud to be from Kelso. And I think we have great pride in our community and our school. And, to see his climb from, and going back to that on-ball continuity stuff, part of going to camp for me was visiting with Tommy, or whenever any chance we could, to pick his brain. And I remember him just, trying to teach it to me. And it was just like I had a cement wall in my head. I was like, I could not comprehend it. The more you watch it, the more you pick his brain. You see that. And then, I have the opportunity to coach his nephew now, who's playing for us. And he's an incredible story. In fact, you shoot a text to him, not, he's so busy now, but just the idea that it must be quite a thrill for him, to go from, 20 years of doing, a great job at Gonzaga, and all of a sudden, a premier head coach in a Power 5 conference is an incredible accomplishment. So, we have some great stories from Kelso, and he certainly ranks way at the top of them for sure. It's cool to be able to talk about him, and, he's really personable, and, gave a ton to our program in terms of knowledge and speaking to our guys. And so, couldn't happen to a better guy.
Joe, you're one of the old timers. I think it's 20 plus years you've been in that seat at Kelso.
Oh, I know.
You've ever been in a position where you've had to break in 2 point guards at the same time, and two players like Tristan and Tyler?
They're both eager, and and we have another one. I think he had a broken thumb, but I think he'll be in the mix. And we're pretty interchangeable, or we try to be with that position. And in terms of we have to have a point guard. There has to be a guy, but both of them can slide off and play the two. So I always tell them you have to be able to play 2 positions and know 2 positions. And I think both of them, Tristan's a sophomore, and so there's still a little bit more leadership that I think he's a good leader. He's a hard worker, but I think Tyler, being a year older, has kind of asserted himself as more of a leader. Tyler's a really vocal kid, and we played at Prairie on Friday, and we didn't decide. We spotted him a 20-point lead with about 4 to go in the third, and so, but Tyler's really vocal, come on guys. And so there's that piece that he really does a nice job with, and really flies around. And it's a good problem to have. They're both good players. It's just a matter of getting them on the floor, and that learning curve we talked about earlier.
Well, Coach, we appreciate the time. We got one more question to leave you with. At the end of this season, you throw out the record, how will you know it will be a success for Kelso basketball? Because there's so many ways this year to define success.
Yeah, we've worked on that. That's one of our goals, is how are we going to define what success looks like? And there's some things that we've talked about as a team, and we are so young, so we're using the book Toughness by Jay Billis, and really trying to define what success will look like. And for us, we have a way to measure, every game out, is it better than the last one? And so it's a little bit subjective in a sense, but I think our chemistry has to maintain its. I think we have really good roots for team chemistry. I think that's really important. And then I think for players individually, they have to be able to grow, whether it be understanding what we're trying to do conceptually on both ends of the floor. I think right now we're a little bit behind defensively because, as I said earlier, we played a ton of offense. So I think, just looking at how we going back to our definition that we've defined in our locker room, we have a kind of hopefully it's our guiding plan as we go through this, but winning and losing does help define success in some ways. This year's, I think the emphasis is more on team development and how we can continue to move those guys forward through practices where kids are at track or baseball and kids are on vacation, and just maintaining that core that we believe in is important to our program, and hopefully at the end we can check that box.
Well, Coach, for Todd Millis and myself, Dan Dickow, and everyone at SBLive Washington, we thank you for joining our virtual media day. Glad to know that you're in the middle of the season, and hopefully you guys can finish off strong. So thanks again for joining.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate all you guys do. Love your podcast.